Now that we know how to create triads on the keyboard, the next step is learning how to invert them on the keyboard. When we invert a triad, it's kind of similar to inverting a fraction in that basically we're turning it upside down and we're reordering the notes in the triad. So instead of that triad looking like the notes are stacked and are evenly spaced, we're still going to use the same notes, but we're changing the arrangement of them. So let's examine this with a couple different triads. We can invert major, minor, augmented, or diminished triads. It all works the same way. So let's say we go to the keyboard and we'll start with a triad that has all white keys, so we'll try G major. G major triad has G, major third up to B, and a minor third up to D. Okay, so before I invert my triad, it's really important for me to make sure that I know what those three notes are in the triad because I need to remember them as I invert them. So for this G major triad, we have G, B, D. What I'm going to do to invert it is to take the bottom note, which is G, and move it to the top. So instead of playing G down here, I'll play G an octave higher. The other two notes will stay where they are. So now instead of bottom to top reading G, B, D, now it's B, D, G. But it's the same three notes, so it's technically still a G major triad. If I invert it again, I take the current bottom note, which is B, move it up to the top. So now my notes are D, G, B. If I invert it one more time, I've run out of arrangements for it, so I'll end up back in what we call root position, where the root, or the foundation of the triad, is on the bottom and everything's evenly spaced. So regardless of which inversion I play, it's still always some form of G major, which is G, B, and D. G, B, D. B, D, G. D, G, B. And back to root position, G, B, D. The key is to keep the notes the same. It's pretty easy when you're playing these and inverting these triads on the keyboard to accidentally change a note without realizing it. So again, you want to remind yourself of what those notes actually are before you start inverting them. Let's take another example. We'll go with a minor chord. So how about F sharp minor? This would be F sharp, minor third to A, major third up to C sharp. This one will be a little bit trickier because we actually have two black keys as part of the triad, so we'll need to make sure that those show up in every inversion. Here's F sharp minor root position. And again, I'll say those names so that I'm sure of what they are. F sharp, A, C sharp. Another thing I might want to note before I invert this is that the two black keys that I'm playing are at the bottom of each group of black keys, or on the left side. This will stay consistent as we invert the triad. So we start with F sharp, A, C sharp, move the F sharp to the top. Now we have A, C sharp, F sharp. Now we're going to move that A to the top. C sharp, F sharp, A. And finally, if we invert it again, we're back to root position. F sharp, A, C sharp. Let's try a diminished triad. Diminished triads are a little bit different when you invert them. They work the same way, but the gaps, since the notes are closer together to begin with, the gaps will be larger as we invert them. So that's just one thing to be prepared for. Let's try A diminished. So we have A, C, E flat. All of those are minor thirds apart. When I invert it, I move that A up an octave. So now it's C, E flat, A. Take the C, put it on top, E flat, A, C, and finally back to root position, A, C, E flat. So again, regardless of what triad we're inverting, we always keep the same three notes. They're just in a different order. And we could also go backwards. We could start with a higher triad, invert it backwards, backwards, I'm just taking the top note and moving it to the bottom to do that. So when you use inverted triads, it just, again, changes the way that your music sounds. So it sounds different to have a triad that's in root position versus in, say, first inversion, which is the first time you invert it, or second inversion, the second time you invert it. So they are fun inversions to experiment with when you're creating your own music to see what you like the sound of.